I kind of black out when I'm writing, and I almost forget, because I have friends who will come up to me in San Francisco and say, or, acquaintances even, and they'll be like, well, I read that thing that you wrote about. And I forget that I'm putting it out for public consumption. I think sometimes people are maybe surprised or taken aback at the vulnerability, at least people that I know in my close circle. And I think the truth is I don't really have a filter when it comes to that. And something about motherhood, I think, cracked me wide open, where it was just like, why aren't more people talking about this? That this is this crazy push-pull constantly for the rest of your life. And I couldn't wrap my brain around it. So you write what you know, right?
Welcome to Talk Shop. I'm Ariel Okin, a New York-based interior designer, writer, and editor, looking to bring a little bit of magic into our homes every day. After years as a writer and editor in the interiors world, I founded my own editorial site, Fenimore Lane, in 2020, and the Talk Shop interview series was born. Each week, I delve into the personal experiences of the top interior designers and tastemakers around the globe. For this week's episode, it's a Talk Shop first, as we welcome a duo, lifelong friends and now co-founders, the team behind In Kind, Weil McKinley and Leah Melby Clinton. Hannah and Leah first met over a decade ago during their time spent in Editorial at POPSUGAR, a pop culture site that covers all things from fashion to beauty to shopping. After the birth of Hannah's first daughter, she felt a seismic shift and began to look for and share more candid stories around motherhood and womanhood. Across the country, Leah started to kick around an idea of creating a space for community. Then the pandemic hit, and the beginnings of In Kind took root. Printed twice yearly and available digitally, In Kind is thoughtfully curated and touches on the conversations modern women are having about motherhood, career, ambition, personal style, interior design, and more. As they say, In Kind is a conversation around the things that really matter, focused on capturing, exploring, and supporting the questions and dreams that women are having with each other. And I agree as a personal fan. So please join me as we welcome Hannah and Leah to the podcast. Welcome, Hannah and Leah, to the podcast. We're so excited to have you on. This is like a dream guest duo for me today. So I'm so thrilled.
We're excited.
Oh, gosh.
So exciting. But to kick off the conversation, we always ask everyone who comes on the podcast if both of you could describe your style in 3 words or less.
Hi, this is Leah, and I would describe my personal style as country aristocrat.
Oh my God, I love that. And that is
Thank
so unexpected.
So good. It's so good. It's so Leah.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I would describe my personal style as
Boy meets girl. So like nothing too precious or, kind of like overly styled or girly, just always a little bit of something, a little bit of contrast, tomboy it up a little bit.
I love that. And also not surprising that the editors have the best edited answer for this.
I'm just excited you asked. I feel like I'm always wanting someone to ask because I have the answer. And most people aren't normally like, how would you describe your style in a really succinct way? So I'm like, this is the best. I get to use this somewhere. So.
I love it. It's a very specific question. So before we get into more about In Kind also, can you guys tell me a little bit individually about your career path? So I'm curious to hear about how you both ended up as editors, and was it something you were always interested in?
I always wanted to be a magazine editor. So in that way, I was something like no anomaly or kind of surprise there. I loved writing. I've always loved writing. I saved magazines under a box in my bed. I had an AOL zine when I was in middle school. My high school guidance counselor was kind of like, you need to think about what else you might want to be. And it's like, nope, this is what I want to do. I'm looking for a college with a magazine journalism major. So I was very kind of focused on that. So graduated from school with my degrees in magazine journalism. This is a random twist, I guess. I studied abroad in Australia and loved it. So I was like, I'm moving to Los Angeles. It's the closest thing to Australia. And if you want to work in magazines, it's just the most stupid, it's a dumb move. But I was very convinced it was possible. I blame a lot of this on Whitney Port and The Hills.
Yeah.
I somehow got an interview with Lisa Love. And do y'all remember from The Hills where it was in that office? I was like, I can do this. I did not get hired. And what would that job have even been? So for a year I was in California, living my LA dream. I was a manager at Abercrombie, like just so bizarro. And I was like, this is stupid. Like I have to go back to New York City.
That's so funny.
Went back. I got a job at a magazine. I was at More, which was for women over 40, super duper glam. But I think when I look back, I remember feeling, I guess, insecure. It's like, it's not Vogue, it's not Elle, it's like More. But like you learn a lot, right? I feel like I wasn't the 20th assistant in the closet. I was doing, still editorial assistant stuff, but was doing more. It was kind of also my first, I think, learning where you're like, gosh, it's women over 40 that can buy the expensive handbags that are being advertised in this magazine,
So
not
true.
Cosmo or not Vogue. And that was also, I think, my first job where no one wanted to do digital work. It's kind of like, hey, you write fashion stories for the website, which I'm 23 writing like fashion service stories for women 40 plus.
Right.
But you really, and I think a lot of kind of our contemporaries that were editors, it's like you got forced into digital really because print people did not want to do it. It was like the ugly stepchild. So
how the tables have turned.
Totally. So kind of just fell into digital that way. Like what you said, I think most of us in the editorial world, you kind of bounce around when there's a job opening or a boss moves to a different publication. So I bounced from publication to publication, just same sort of job, just different places. The kind of end of my editorial career was what you had mentioned. A good friend I was with at Glamour went to Elle and said, oh, there's a job opening up doing branded content. And it was kind of like, gosh, will I be leaving editorial life? And do I want to do that? Or it felt like it was maybe a new frontier. And so just kind of the opportunity was there and you're like, I'm going to do it. I really, really liked it. It was a good intersection of marketing and sales and editorial that I learned a lot that's been instrumental for InKind. It's been instrumental for my paid day job now. And it also was cool to see for me. It was my first thing of being like, this is kind of one of my superpowers. I do really well working cross-functionally. I do really well, like the marketer like me and the salesperson like me and my editors like me. So just natural. It's just something that I was good at naturally, and not a lot of editors are not good at that, right? Like they're very prickly when you get involved with like sales people telling them they have to write about things. Like it doesn't work well for lots of people. So that was great. And then when I was pregnant and kind of my current job, I work for Margot and had chatted with them. I met them through work as a fashion editor and loved the women there. Loved the brand, and kind of they were like, we're growing, like would you want to come on board? And it's the same thing, you're like, did I manifest this? Like it wasn't a job description that you were applying for, but it just felt like the universe is telling me this is the right thing. And it's so you just do it, kind of jump when there's a moment where I think it's really nice how you said that. It's almost like it's not luck, it's just there's a moment, and if you're just brave enough or willing to accept it and know that you could always change anything. You could always go back. You could move and take the new job and not like it, and then you're job hunting again, And
that's such an important point too. I mean, my mom has always been big on saying that to me, like, you're not stuck anywhere, and it's important to try things. And if you don't like it, you can leave. And I think people kind of get career paralysis sometimes because they're like, well, what if it's not a good move? And what if but then you're not growing. And if you're not learning, and you hit that ceiling, then you're not growing anymore. And then what is that, are you then stagnant in where you are? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really crucial point too, because I think a lot of people are afraid to make these types of moves.
Absolutely.
I mean, to be totally candid, I think I was one of them. My career path is different in that I found POPSUGAR as a 23-year-old, and it was like at my first an internship in PR before, which I really didn't like, and it wasn't a good fit. And San Francisco is hard in terms of fashion. And like Leah, I think I always knew I wanted to do, I wanted to be in fashion. I wallpapered my bedroom in editorials when I was, in high school, and thought,
oh my God, I did that too.
It was the dream. I just do this all day. And I also loved to write. I loved, writing. I wrote for my college paper. My fourth grade teacher said, you're going to write a book, which hasn't happened, but we'll see.
I'm manifesting it for you. I feel it for both of you. I really do.
Maybe that would be cool. I moved to San Francisco. Actually, my husband and I met in college, and he's from here. So I moved out, and I was just like, where are the fashion jobs? What am I going to do? And I ended up, not to date myself, but finding a POPSUGAR job ad in Craigslist.
Oh my God. I love it.
An editorial assistant position. And it just meant assisting across the department. So I got in and I was like sort of doing any number of things for every site. And at that point, their verticals were broken up by, I don't know if you remember this, but it was like POPSUGAR, Buzz Sugar, Fab Sugar was the fashion one. It's a mom vertical, which I ended up like, this is way pre-kids. I was making like meal murals in my kitchen and photographing them. And then, I stayed at POPSUGAR for 12 years. I moved to New York. I worked in the New York office for 5 years, which is where I met Leah. And we overlapped for a year and a half or so, I think, Leah, before you jumped.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, in the back of my mind, I was like, I am going to move back to San Francisco and there's going to be no other job. Like I want to be at a place where I can continue to do this. And where will I do that? And I think the part also that kept me there was that there was just so much change and growth constantly. Like POPSUGAR, when I joined, I think I was one of, under 20 editors, in the whole editorial department. It was 2009. And they were just growing so fast, and they were doing video, and we were doing experiential, and we were, at Fashion Week and doing activations, and everything just seemed to be growing in all directions. So there was no lack of kind of newness or no lack of things to try and get your hands on. And
that was kind of like ahead of its time for then too.
Yeah, I think Brian and Lisa, who founded the company, are both really, Brian is such a tech guy that he was really ahead of so much of the content and commerce initiative. So, just kind of always thinking of what was next, where media was going to go. And it always felt very exciting. I mean, Leah, you remember like in the New York office, we were always filming live segments in the middle of, and like we were market editors and going to appointments and sourcing product to then put on camera and host the segment. So it was like you were touching so many pieces of it.
Yeah, it's like an education unto itself.
It was huge. It was a really, really huge learning opportunity. And by the time I left, I was managing the fashion team remotely from San Francisco and also running the shop team, which was the first content and commerce team. And then I went to the editorialist for a little bit and was the editorial director there, heading up, they're mostly luxury fashion. So it was a little bit of a change, but still great to be in the fashion world. And then, stayed there for a little less than a year. And I feel like I learned a lot of great things from both places. And now it feels like media is just kind of a circus. And I'm happy to sort of bow out of the search game and celebrity game and really kind of use the skills to do brand consulting, which has been part of what I'm doing on the side with InKind. And just also, there's so much to do with InKind as well. So.
Well, let's talk about InKind because I'm so inspired. Obviously, this is an interior design podcast and you guys cover interiors in the magazine beautifully, but you also cover things like the intersection of career and motherhood, personal style, sort of all the contours of a modern woman's life. And I think you guys do it so beautifully. I am always just struck by the way your content is smart, it's edited, it touches me at the point of life that I'm in right now. And I feel like a lot of our listeners are sort of also in that point in their lives. And so tell me of how you guys sort of came together to start the magazine and where you see it going.
I think too, Ariel, you've been so lovely to us since the beginning. So I want to on air say thank you, but also I think
it's genuine. I think it's like excellent content.
Thank you. And I mean, I think Hannah and I talk about this frequently. It's like you meet people who are so kind and generous and it just, it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, but it's also made such the difference kind of when you're trying to grow something from absolutely nothing, feeling like you have a cheerleader who sees that thing in you. I think you were in like issue 3, right? And we've just grown and gotten like a little glossier and a little more polished and pulled together than like those early issues. It's like you did it and said yes when we weren't, even as glossy as we've gotten. So, and I think it's like what you said, it's almost for, the 3 of us on this chat. I think our readers are kind of probably communities on our own. The Venn diagram of your life just feels like those circles have gotten so smushed together for our generation, this time of life, and it's, I think partly why we started that is Hannah and I saw that with ourselves. It's like all these different parts of you that are still, the core of who you are. It's like that you are a mother, you're a professional, you're a wife, you're a daughter, you're a friend. There are all these things that could kind of live in their own vertical, like in website parlance, right? It's all the same. I'm still me at the end of the day. You guys are still you. And so wanting to figure out a way that could speak to it. And even the interiors part of it, it felt like, for Hannah and I to not be in that world professionally, as you age though still, you have a home or you have a bigger apartment, you have some money to spend on stuff. You suddenly care. And if you love style, you realize you do care about wallpaper or like what's hanging on the wall in a way that that was never my thing. And I think a lot of our, we all kind of age into it. It's something new to shop for, which is always exciting. So anyways, I think that was kind of our shared ethos. And, Hannah, Hannah's a beautiful writer. And so I think that zine,
like truly,
she's amazing. Right. And like, I'm a good writer. And so if I think someone's a good writer, I'm like, Hannah, there's no one that I think writes as well as Hannah. And so
Hannah's essays have made me cry, just for the record. So I think if you haven't read her writing, it is so beautiful and really captures the essence of motherhood, like in a way that I haven't found.
She's a crier maker. She makes you cry.
Crier maker.
Yeah. It's not nice, Hannah.
It's just, I kind of black out when I'm writing, and I almost forget, because I have friends who will come up to me in San Francisco and say, or, acquaintances even, and they'll be like, well, I read that thing that you wrote about. And I forget that I'm putting it out for public consumption.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people are maybe surprised or taken aback at the vulnerability, at least people that I know in my close circle. And I think the truth is like, it just kind of, I don't really have a filter when it comes to that. And something about motherhood, I think, cracked me wide open, where it was just like, why aren't more people talking about this? That this is this crazy push-pull constantly for the rest of your life. And I couldn't wrap my brain around it. So I think a lot of that, comes from that place of like, it just, I don't know. You write what you know, right?
Well, and like sometimes we're asked kind of if it's like it's for, only for mothers or whatnot. And it's not. And I think we try to make sure there's content that's not just about motherhood. But like to Hannah's point, it's such a big part of your every day in your life and what you're thinking and wondering about and scared of. It's just like it can't help but be. And I think the very beginning of In Kind, and so that first zine was what Hannah just said, right? Of being like, why is no one writing about this? It felt like it was either stuff for like stay-at-home moms who wanted crafts and like, very like servicey kind of educational stuff, or like
mom with a glass.
Yeah, like the bad mom stuff. And you're like, but where are the moms like us that are very sincere about all of this stuff? And
where are the type A moms?
Yeah. So, I think that's kind of how it started. And then it was really that feeling of why I think we came together, that that zine, knowing Hannah was such a beautiful writer, was like, could you write something to just be in this zine that I have no proper plan for? And then the idea of seeing there being some sort of legs, it just felt like there's no one in the world who I respect as much as a writer and is as simpatico to me, like as Hannah, which we saw over all those wine dates, right? Like coming from coast to coast, where we're different people in so many ways, but really it's so interesting when you find someone. It's not like it's your best friend necessarily. It's just someone you're like, we see things very similarly. And I think it's been really fascinating for us. I think, right, in total candor, it's like if you look back, I think Hannah and I have really similar skill sets. So like in trying to build a business, neither of us are like the operational whiz or the finance person. Like I'll chat with people for the magazine and a lot of founding duos, they're very clearly that. Person A is good at ABC, person B at XYZ.
That's like Laura, who's our operations director, and we've been working together for 10 years. We started the company together. She is like the math, logistics, operations whiz, and I'm like the creative side. But similar to you two, we met while we were at Home Polish, just realized we were kindred spirits, finished each other's sentences, and had kids at the same time. Like we're very much on the same life path in that sense. And it's like a really beautiful thing when you find that.
Yeah. And it means, I think it's like there are parts we've had to figure out as we try to grow the business of what do you do when somebody's not the natural like numbers cruncher. Right. But I think looking back, it's kind of that, there's something so magical when you find someone who sees content or sees the world or wants to have conversations like you do. It's worth kind of figuring out those tricky bits of building a business, because there's something really special and magical about that, I think.
Absolutely. And how amazing that you both, I think it's very rare, especially in the editorial world, to be completely on the same page about everything and to have this one united vision about what it is that you're growing. So I think that's harder to find than someone who can crunch numbers. I think it's really beautiful. I also think just in general, the way that you put the content into the magazine is stunning. The magazine itself is visually beautiful.
Well, that's 1,000%.
It's beautiful.
That's the collaging and the vision. I think, when Leah asked me to be a part of In Kind, she really already had a vision for the aesthetic, which is so beautiful. And I think the collages, just to have given it such a life
Yeah, I think it's such a big part of the brand, I think.
Well, I wonder if like interior people maybe know this the most, if it's like things are born out of necessity or whatever the phrase is, kind of where like the zine, and then especially those first issues, we don't do original photography. We don't have, so you're like, I'm going to collage things, like what's better than a mood board? So it kind of was like just born out of being like, okay, what can I do for free?
I love that.
That I think has become something we both really love. And I think a lot of credit too, we work with our like creative director is this amazing woman named Natalia, who helps a lot with some of the more polished aesthetic. Again, if you went from the zine to issue 2, I did in design and like passed off to her for some help. And I remember I sent her that first zine. I remember being so sheepish about it. Like when she was, when you're a graphic designer, being like, you must look at this and want to like just cringe at how bad it is. And I was like, it'd be so dreamy if like one day you could help like lay this out and design it, thinking that was insane. You know what I mean? Like how would I ever afford this woman's fees to help us?
That makes me so happy though, because, a lot of our listeners are people who are doing something on the side from a day job, or are people who hope to one day be an entrepreneur and like have those thoughts. And just knowing your story and how you guys made this happen, and knowing that like it's still kind of a side project for you guys, like it's fascinating to me because it feels so big and it has grown so much and has grown such name recognition. You guys should both be really proud of yourselves. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I think like anything, at the very beginning, it is crazy. I think when Leah was like, would Natalia ever do this for us? And we're about to publish number 9, which feels huge, I think, right? Like you look back.
Yeah. Because it's biannual. For those who don't know, it's biannual. So it's, that's spanning years.
But it's consistency, right? And it's kind of like, it's just that one foot in front of the other, even when it feels like, why am I doing this? What's the purpose? Who's listening? I feel like I woke up this morning and saw like on Julia Berolsheimer's thing that she had posted like 3,000 blogs. And it was like, she's like, I've been doing this for however long. And it's just like, wow. Like I remember growing up with her being a blogger, and you kind of, I don't know, I don't think we see how much everyone else is trying and how much everyone else is working in the background.
Behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I love from so many of the conversations we have are other women, female founders or entrepreneurs or women with, full-time gigs trying to do something on the side. And it's been like, I feel like the biggest lesson is just like consistency, continuing to show up for that thing that you want to build, even when it feels like there's no audience for it or you don't know where it's going to go. I don't know. I feel like that's been the biggest lesson.
What's that saying? Build the house and they will come. I think I
exactly.
messed that up, but it's true. Well, let's talk a little bit about design also, because you do cover design really beautifully. You feature some really gorgeous interior spaces in the magazine. What is your favorite thing about working with designers, writing about design, covering it in the magazine?
My favorite is probably actually like the story side of the people. I feel like we've featured some women recently who it's like, this is their second career. They had,
it's like me.
What people, the last issue we featured Hema Prasad, who was like a big time lawyer kind of, and then she's now a designer, and I would have no idea. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it looks like someone who's been doing this forever. And it's the only thing she could ever think of doing. In number 9, which is going to be here this October, we featured Mandy Chang. She was a set designer, I think, and kind of she was like, I was just tired of my sets getting struck. And so someone kind of what we said, but the luck thing, someone asks you to do a design project and it works or whatever. So I think that I've actually loved that, of seeing how many people there was this creative germ in them, like a little seed, and kind of whether it was kind of there in their day job or for like Hema, it wasn't at all. And just like it
just happened.
And I just think that's fascinating, and why there's so many of them in the like design world.
There are a lot of women. It's fascinating. I went and got my master's in public affairs and then pivoted. I was doing this on the side because friends would ask me for help, when we moved to the city. And it's amazing how things can come to you in your personal life that you can get so lit up by that they then become your professional life.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like such a gift.
Another thing that's a favorite for me is I think I love reading like shelter magazines or, they're beautiful. And I feel like I'm tearing pages out, so inspired. But I also feel like I read them and you're like, where are the real people? And like, where the heck are the children? And like, who is this for real? And I think when we've done some of your stories, I think we've talked a little bit about designing for children. We did a piece with Becky Nielsen on when she did her own like nursery. And it's so nice.
Which was such a beautiful piece about postpartum too, and how that tied in.
Yes. I think it's like all of our content, really. You want to kind of be honest and share this with like each other of like people, life is hard or these things, it's not all pretty like icing on the surface or whatever. And the interior stuff, I just find it so interesting and relatable when pros are able to say like, yeah, but if people really have kids that are destructive, that doesn't, some people's kids can like be respectful of that upholstery and other people cannot. So this is what we do.
Most kids cannot, they're kids and that's why they're kids. And, 99% of our clients are young families. So it's something that we're always taking into consideration when we're sourcing and putting design boards together, because you have to design for using the good stuff, but also making it practical so that no one is afraid to go in any room. Like every room should be used and every room should be filled with day-to-day activity, but it shouldn't be where it feels so precious, like you said, even with your wardrobe, where you're just too afraid to use it.
Yeah. Kids are messy.
100%. Do you guys have any design rules that you follow or ones that you think are mean to be broken? And that can apply to style too, because I know you guys are more on that side also.
For me, it's really just nothing too precious. And I really try to follow my instincts. If something, really speaks to me, I try to figure out how to incorporate it, even if it seems a little wild. And I think that's true of style and how I dress, and also home and interior spaces. Is like, there's a reason why I'm so drawn to this.
Yeah, that's like a big topic right now too. Everyone's talking about, has taste disappeared? Are we all following an algorithm?
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to remain fully intact and in conversation with your personal style.
Well, and I think the point of personal style, probably it's wardrobe and interiors or any way of using that term, right? It's like, it should make you happy. I think it should make you feel kind of like dreamy. We wrote a pair of essays, Hannah, I forget which issue it was in, where it was like sort of our takes on it. And for me, told you guys it's country aristocrat, it's my personal style. I want to feel like I'm like walking in a grand English home in like my random suburban Pennsylvania. But so it's like, for me, if I can wear a long dress or skirt that sweeps on a stair behind me walking up, I feel so happy. So, it's like, here's in the same way, like these little things that, but if you see it and you're like, I feel like this is my version of an English country house, it makes me feel really joyous. And I think the thing that we talk a lot about, and probably you can apply it to interiors too, is that idea of like not saving the good stuff. And I hate dry cleaning. So if it's a dry clean only thing, I feel like I'm kind of getting that out of my closet. But when you have things that are not dry clean only yet are kind of fancy, like wear them for the stupid Tuesday Zoom when you're just working. I feel like people in my kids' school think I'm like either crazy or like super fashiony, because like all the other moms are in like their workout clothes. I'm like, I'm just wearing clothes. Like if this was in New York, it wouldn't be weird.
I agree. I mean, I feel that way about using our china, using our good china, even when it's not a big holiday. Those things are meant to be enjoyed. And if it's something that you cherish and hold dear, doesn't it expand your happiness if you're utilizing it on a day-to-day basis?
And it matters. And beauty matters,
I think the thing I've realized about that too is that I think this is my side of that essay that Leah and I did these pairs of essays on personal style. And I was someone who kind of lost my way during COVID, where I was like, what am I getting dressed for? Like, I do better with a little bit of an audience, right? And I realized my daughters are paying attention. And also I'm paying attention to them, and I love their enthusiasm for fashion. And it gave me more enthusiasm to see how delighted they were by their own closets and their own choices. And also, vice versa, how they reacted when I was like fully dressed and not wearing my leggings or whatever.
Yes. That's so interesting and true. My girls know that, if I'm getting ready for dinner or something, they know I'm leaving the house.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a shift. Like they know something's about to happen because they can identify that, like, oh, they'll be like, why do you look fancy? Where are you going?
Right. It's funny. But I think the same is true of home. Like you're saying, to use the good china and to do, maybe set the table or use plates. And I think kids notice that stuff, and it's like everyday stuff that makes it feel, you don't have to save it for special occasions. You can make every day feel special if you lean into some of that, just kind of fanfare, even if there's no occasion for it.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think your homes say about you?
We have kids.
We have dogs and kids in my house. It's like
me too. I have like a mix of my kids' toys and then Charlie's toys on the floor in the family room.
I would say we're a work in progress, but I think we're warm, and I think we celebrate each other in our home. And we don't. My husband and my nickname for each other. We dated for 10 years before we got married, and we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. So we've been together like 20 years. And our nickname for each other was always Dino. I don't know where it came from. But we have dinos, like small, like figurines. We commissioned an artist to paint, like things like that, little like dinosaur Easter eggs all around our house. I love homes that feel personal. And I think all my friends' homes and the ones I love the most are the places you can tell that, like, again, it's just a mark of their personal style and who they are, that you go in and you say, this feels like you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wonder if I would say like creative, just because it's a little different. I feel like I'm kind of that personal style thing. You're drawn to what you're drawn to that isn't necessarily a trend or something you feel like you had to put there. I just put on my Instagram story the other day, I have like a big cork board that had been propped up in my closet that I was like, I told my husband, I was like, I think I should do a family vision board. I'm very into vision boards. And he was like, okay. So now we have a cork board in our living room. And trying to explain this to my 4.5-year-old, I was like, you put on photos of things you want more of in your life. And she was like, okay, let me get stuff. So her contributions as of yet have been a photo of her getting her first ever gumball, because she wants more gumballs, and like insane, like Barbie-esque knee-high bow pink sandals taken from like backstage at a fashion week shoot. She's like, and I want more fancy shoes. I was like, okay, like this is kind of what a vision board is.
Same girl.
Me too, Allegra. Me too.
That's so cute. That's also like the cutest activity to do with a kid. Like the answers must be incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I'm collage-y by nature, but it's like, I think I'm hoping when it gets put together, I think it'll look nice, right? Like, because that's the thing about vision boards. Sometimes I think it's like a nice cork board with stuff. Like, I guess for me, I think it could also just feel very like that is pure energy coming off of cork, right? Like hitting you in the face.
If you are one of those people who made those collages growing up, which I was, and I think so many people who are in the creative world were, it's really just a visual representation of what you're drawn to and what's going on in your brain. And so to do one in that way, I think it's actually like so sweet, because your kids are in it and it becomes like this amalgamation of what everybody is drawn to in the house.
Yeah. I just love a vision board. I feel like I have an old one, and like looking at it, it was fascinating like years later to look at it and be like, oh, these things came true,
I know. I found one that I was in high school. My mom kept all of our stuff. When my parents sold our house outside of Philly, they put everything in storage for like 10 years. And then I found a vision board that I had made for like a school project when I was a senior in high school. And it had pictures of New York. It had the Vogue logo. It had interiors photos. It had everything. I didn't even realize that I wanted at 18. And so much of it is where I went. And it was fascinating to look at. 16 years later, I was like, you just don't really realize that there's so much innate intuition inside of you, and that if you just sort of quiet yourself down and listen to it, you kind of know where you want to go sometimes.
I feel like so much of being an adult is like getting back to the instincts you had as a child and just into that more.
Yes. It's so fascinating. I learned how to do transcendental meditation last year. I love it. And it totally transformed so much for me. But one of the most fascinating things that I think about the practice is they kind of encourage you to approach each meditation as if you're, approaching it with like a childlike sense of wonder. And that's so fascinating for creative people. I think it really helps you unlock that well of inspiration and creativity that you kind of lose as you become an adult and like, the real world seeps in.
So true. I'm also a transcendental meditator. I need to do it more, but my dad has been meditating his whole life, basically since law school. And when I have 2 older siblings, and when each of us were in our senior year in high school, my dad, as a gift before we went to college, got each of us TM certified.
That's incredible.
Yeah, he was like, you're about to go to college. You need to have this as a tool. It's the greatest gift. And I did not fully appreciate it, I think, until I was very much post-college and into adulthood. Maybe even after I had my kids, I was like, oh gosh, this is such a gift.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's really what a tool to have in your life toolbox.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite places to shop for home? I know you guys both have previous market editor experience.
I love eBay, period. And I love like antique stuff, but not in like not the chic way. My father-in-law is an auctioneer.
I love auctions.
Yeah. And like not a posh, fancy auction, like really a Pennsylvania country auction. So I just love.
And by the way, the fancy auction people find the good stuff.
They're there.
Yeah.
They're there with me at like the random firehouse in Pennsylvania. But yeah, Hannah, I'm curious what you're going to say. I think when you love shopping, it's like that thrill of the hunt kind of thing. Like it's in home, it just feels like the most exciting too. You go into random places and you could find nothing. And then you're like, that's the thing I've been looking for.
No, totally. Gosh, I am a big One Kings Lane fan. I feel like I could just be on that site scrolling through pages.
They do a good job of editing.
They really do. I mean, we live in San Francisco and I like sort of like a little bit of a laid back. I like Serena and Lily for some stuff. Our wallpaper in our dining room is Serena and Lily. I feel like I love their sort of just like easy, very livable vibe.
Yeah. We're big Serena and Lily fans at AOI. We use it in like every project.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I love finding eclectic things from secondhand or just combing the internet. I actually will say I really like Zara Home for some stuff.
They have great stuff.
I feel like they've gotten really good. Like I'll just find like baskets there that I like and like, yeah, like tabletop stuff, all kinds of platters randomly.
We use it a lot for shoots when we style. There's such great stuff from Zara Home.
Yeah. I will be looking like on Zara for myself for whatever clothes that I'm throwing in my cart. And then
I know Zara is so good. It's like once I start, I try not to scratch the itch. And then once I get on there, I'm like, oh my God, I have to stop. It's so bad.
I really tried to give it up. And then I've been shopping for my girls from Zara.
Yeah. Well, they have the best kids' clothes.
This is so good. So then I'll randomly find something for myself and be like, okay, fine. I wasn't going to do this, but I will.
I know it's like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
For both of you, what do you think the 3 biggest influences on your aesthetic in your life have been?
It's a really good question. I mean, I grew up spending a lot of time in Maine. It's where my family has a summer house, and it's pretty much where my family is full time now. And I think even though I'm really drawn to trends because I think just the fashion editor in me is always excited about what's going to be on the runway, what there is, how to incorporate something new with like the classic stuff. I still have such a soft spot for that, like just kind of like coastal classic aesthetic, at least when it comes to fashion. And then I really want to say, oddly, Jenna Lyons. Like, I just feel like watching her when I was fashion editor and she was at JQ, like,
yeah,
I just think the way she mixed high and low and really kind of pioneered that just like downtown cool with like the sort of, bits of tulle or whatever she just was so creative, so cool. I feel like she has such a lasting influence in my head. Like those images of her on the red carpet or, sitting in her apartment. I think when her first apartment was photographed, like that's just like lives in my brain.
That bathroom is like one of the most iconic.
Yes.
I think I would say ballet. I studied ballet pretty seriously all through like my childhood and, teen years and stuff. So I think that feeling of some drama and like very feminine and kind of that idea of like full skirts and like I feel like in kind of classic ballet when you're younger, it's like they have those like pretty little elastic bands that go right at the natural waist. Like just that kind of like femininity and the straight back and a beautiful neck, just like that kind of feeling, I think probably weds itself through a lot of my like the sort of dresses I love. And then probably with apparel and home, I think maybe just as a nerdy kind of kid, like reading those books with like the English country houses sort of things, like just that idea of if I could snap my fingers, and live anywhere, it would be in a big old like country pile somewhere. When I think back to like my senior year prom dress had like a bustle. Like I was this nerdy kid who didn't, I feel like all the cool kids are in like, sequins and like bright colors.
Oh
and
my God, I love that
somewhat
so
sexy.
much.
I was like just so weird. But like even still today, I think if you let me wear a bustle, I'd be like, okay, like a hoop skirt.
But there's something so beautiful in that because that is confidence and like self-assuredness in your own personal style and taste. And that makes me
Ariel.
so happy. Like I love that story. I'm like smiling thinking about that. It's so cute.
I am too, because it's so Leah.
I love it. Well, we always end the podcast with our rapid fire questions, which have nothing to do with design, but well, some sort of do. But I always like to ask them because I feel like you get a little insight into the people that we're talking to. So I'm going to ask both of you, and you can just rapid fire back. What is your favorite food?
Pizza or saltines?
Saltines. I love that.
A really good New York bagel with like chive cream cheese, onion, Nova, like the works.
Whenever I hear saltines, I immediately think of that episode of Sex and the City where she's like stacking them with jelly and eating them.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever seen that one, but I need to.
Oh, I'm going to send it to you.
Saltines are just so good.
They're so good. They were also like my pregnancy comfort food. Like I had them in every handbag. They were like the crumbs were like strewn everywhere in my clothes. They were like they were like my security blanket.
All over my nightstand. All I can think
Yep.
that I was just like
In my sheets because I had them like, I was waking up at 3 a.m. and like eating saltines. Favorite drink?
A white wine spritzer.
Oh, so crisp and delicious.
an Aperol spritz or a very, very, very dirty martini.
I like all three of those, so I'm with you on all of that. Favorite film?
Daddy's Home 2.
I'm dying. That's amazing.
I have so many for so many reasons, but the one that I could watch on repeat forever, I think, is Only You with Robert Downey Jr. and Marissa Tomei. It's like if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. It takes place in Italy, and it's just like the best kind of like late 90s.
Oh my God, I have to look it up. I haven't seen it.
Also, you have to. Her wardrobe is also, I think that was very influential in my own personal style development. She's just perfect in that movie.
Oh my God, I have to see it.
You also have to watch Daddy's Home 2, but it's a Christmassy movie.
Oh my God.
So save it for Christmas.
I love a holiday movie more than anything. And also whenever I hear Marissa Tomei, I immediately think Seinfeld. Favorite hotel?
I have such wonderful memories. My husband and I went on a trip right before we decided we were going to start trying to have a baby. It was like the last like big trip we took together. And we went to Japan and then to Thailand. Just like the best trip ever. But we stayed only 2 nights in Kyoto, but we stayed at the Ritz there. And it is just like the most stunning place in the most stunning place. Like Kyoto is incredible. And then on top of it, to be there, they have this incredible like tempura bar downstairs that has like tempura that will ruin you for any other once you're back in the state. Like, and the rooms are like beautiful and kind of traditional, but also, it was absolute heaven.
Going on that last trip before you know you're going to start a family is one of the most special trips. We went to Napa, and I just always like think of it. It's just such a special time in life before it's like you're in limbo, and it's like, it's just a special time. Favorite city?
New York.
San Francisco.
Diametrically opposed. Yeah. Favorite bedding?
I guess Parachute.
I think maybe Brooklinen.
They're both great. Tea or coffee, and how do you take it?
Coffee, half and half.
I have been now for like the last 10 years, I switched to matcha lattes. And in the last 2 months, I'm back to coffee, and I'm drinking it just like that.
Wow. What is your favorite playlist?
I like 70s yacht music.
Yes, I'm here for that.
I love that for you. I don't know. I'm like a Paul Simon, James Taylor, like middle of the day kind of thing. If that's like if I'm working or driving.
Yeah. Favorite weekend activity?
Sonoma with my kids. We go up to my husband's family place, and we're like in the pool or at the garden.
It's so nice.
We like take the little gator thing out around the property and go. There's like a horse down the street that we go feed, and it's like it's the best escape from the city. Like when you're in the city, and this just feels like you're not even an hour from San Francisco, but you might as well be like,
yeah, another world.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Sonoma's amazing.
I would say walking around Home Goods and then like maybe having a glass of wine,
Yes.
like daytime wine.
I love it.
I love going to Home Goods, especially my mom and I will go together and it's just so fun. It's the best. Again, it's the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are. You could be in like the nicest store or Facebook Marketplace or Home Goods, but it's like the thrill of finding that great thing. The last one is tricky for most people to answer. What is your favorite design book?
I went through before I had my kids. I feel like like a weekend morning, I would love waking up and having coffee and read like a coffee table kind of design book. So I went through stories. I feel like I hunted on eBay. I won't say her name right either, but the Madeline Castang. And I feel like that was just so interesting and different and almost like that kind of being projected like into the past. Like I like those. Or I think actually I have one about the like Dior's flower garden that the perfumery house brought back, right? And you can't go unless you're like a value, because I was immediately like, can I go on vacation and visit this beautiful place? You have to be like a value Dior couture customer or something. I was like, okay. I thought that actually, I think Dior as a person was so fascinating that like I like those with stories, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It ties back to how you operate in kind in general.
Yeah.
Well, a final few words. What are you guys working on right now? Are there any new issues or projects you can talk about?
Yeah.
We are just finishing up our design work on issue number 9 of the magazine. So when this comes out, it should be shipping to subscribers and with our fantastic printers in Rhode Island. So we're kind of done. It's with the amazing Natalia we mentioned. So we're editing that, making sure everything is perfect before it gets printed. And then we'll be working on our reader retreat in Sonoma next spring.
Oh my God, that's so fun. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, we're excited. Coming March or April, we'll have dates to share soon, but really excited to do probably an overnight, a couple nights for a small group. And then for the first time, we'll do day passes for a bigger group.
I think it's so smart that you're doing that. I mean, the summit for us, it's just amazing to get to see your community in real life and see people interact together. It's just so fulfilling. And I know you guys had an amazing experience last year with your summit. And it's such a cool thing to do.
It's awesome. It is like, it makes it all just like, it crystallizes it, right? People in front of you and you're like, oh my gosh, we're having the conversations I wanted to have.
No, it's amazing. Final question that we ask everyone is, what is your advice for someone looking to define their own style?
Someone told me this at one point. I think it's like very practical kind of, but it makes sense. Figure out whose style you like and like make a Pinterest board, go to their Instagram page. Like it helps to really, I think, clarify what it is, you know? And so like giving that burst of who like my best friend, hers was Erin Lauder. And so it was just so easy, like look at her personal style and like take inspiration or think like, well, would she wear this thing? Would she buy this thing? And I think if you're trying to like refine a real look, it's helpful to have like somebody who is in your mind of like, that's what the world is and play there.
Yeah. Paloma Contreras had good, similarly, she said for interiors, like pull imagery from all of the spaces that you love and then highlight what it is that you like about each image. And then you'll start to see a trend of like, okay, I gravitate toward, neutral rooms with pops of, black iron or XYZ. But when you start to pull imagery as reference material and then you look for the thread between all of it, it really helps you figure out what it is that you're actually drawn to.
The stylist Kate Young said the same kind of thing, but with clothing, where it was like, she said when she works with her clients, they pull images and it's like, why did you like that? Is it because you felt powerful? Is it because you felt good about your body? Is it because you felt romantic and, dreamy? And so then you're right, you kind of like have a lesson or a takeaway, which I think is really, really smart, whether it's interiors or fashion.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think that that's like a really good practical starting point. And then I think the other thing is just like get out of your own way. And like again, this is like a lesson coming out of COVID when I was like not worried, but I was so preoccupied with like, why am I getting dressed if I'm not going to the office and I'm not dressing for other people? And it's like, just ask yourself, like, what do you want to wear? What do you want to wear today? If there were no occasion to dress for, nothing to do. And I started to just sort of think of it the way like, Carrie Bradshaw just like freaking gets in that closet and gets dressed and like she's going on a coffee run in a full skirt and a bra top. Like, I think it's like, what are you waiting for? Just get dressed for yourself. Just wear.
Well, Guys, thank you so much for coming on. This was such a delight. I always love when I get to chat with you two. Where can listeners find more about you and In Kind?
We are inkindmagazine.com is the best spot to subscribe or order an issue. And then we're on Instagram at inkindmag, at inkindmag.
Amazing. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was such a treat. And I can't wait for everybody to hear this episode.
Yay. Thank you so much, Ariel. Thank you for everything all the time since the beginning. You're the best.
And likewise. That's a wrap for this week's episode of Talk Shop. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with more thoughtful discussions and amazing guests. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. And of course, follow me at Ariel Okin. See you next week.